You've seen the memes. Give Luffy a Big Mac and a medium fry and he will liberate your entire nation. But what if this is actually not just a gag? What if food and offering is actually the secret to Luffy's divine power? As you know, Luffy is the latest incarnation of the sun god Nika. And I'm pretty sure that gods in One Piece work a whole lot like gods in Shinto, the most widely practiced religion in Japan. You know, the one with the gods and yokai that almost the entire anime world is built upon. Now, as Nika, Luffy literally grows more powerful through worship and offerings. When you give Luffy food or something else, it actually does recover him and make him even stronger. On the other hand, while Luffy is the sun god, Imu here is of course the devil, and I do think that looking into Shinto beliefs will also help us uncover later on a lot about Imu's powers and how exactly they work, as well as reveal just why Imu needs to erase the entire history of the Void Century and cleanse the entire world. Now you might or might not remember this, but one of Enel's coldest lines in Skypiea was his very first one. I am God. Little did he know, he was about to come face to face with a real god of the One Piece world, Luffy. Now, Skypiea was of course the first arc that really focused in on the ideas of worship and religion and gods overall. It gave us the first mention of the four gods, the sun, rain, earth, and forest gods, and it also showed us civilizations worshipping false gods like the Kashigami, the big snake, and of course, big man Enel himself. But what if I told you that the hints towards Luffy's godhood didn't just start there? Nope, not in Alabasta either, because today we're actually taking it all the way back to chapter Uno, which is 1 in English in case you didn't know, when Shanks makes his big sacrifice to the sun gods. But to really get what Oda is doing here, I think you'll need to know a little bit more about Shinto, which I've been reading a whole book about, which is also why I made this video. There was like so many aha moments in this book. It was a really good read, and here's the in a nutshell version. So Shinto is the largest religion in Japan, often practiced alongside or like intermingled with Buddhism, which, you know, accounts for almost all the other crazy powers and inspirations in anime. And Shinto centers around the worship of spirits and gods called kami, the Japanese word for god, though I guess the term god in Japanese, or at least in Shinto, is a lot more widespread and flexible. Now, this worship typically happens at shrines. You might have seen them, but there are some very specific practices that Shinto practitioners still follow, even though the religion is surprisingly loose in its form, but there are a lot of important rites. By the way, in case you're curious, the book I'm talking about is this one, Shinto, the Kami Way by Sokoyo Ono. Very much recommended, quick read, and it talks about a lot of stuff that is just crazy relevant to One Piece, not just what we'll talk about in this video, but that's the main part I'm really excited about. Because as I was reading one particular chapter here, I was like, okay, I need to make a video about this. This is One Piece, right? Which makes sense, you know, like obviously Oda pulls from a ton of mythologies and religions from all around the world for inspiration, but as a Japanese author, growing up surrounded by Shinto practices and how deeply this belief and like the rites around it are interwoven in Japanese everyday life, it makes perfect sense for a lot of these cultural aspects to weave their way into the core of One Piece, as they have with pretty much any other big, you know, manga or anime out there. Now, on a quick side note here, these last few weeks have been one of the most exciting times to be a One Piece fan, obviously. Like, the entire emo reveal has just been unbelievable after waiting for it for so long. But I'd also be lying if I didn't admit that getting all of these emo videos written and prepared and recorded and edited lately wasn't a little bit stressful for me and my team. Being a content creator is my absolute dream job, but it still comes with its own fair share of challenges as well, as you can imagine, which is why I'm very happy that this video is sponsored by BetterHelp. Because despite being a creator, I probably have the exact same worries and stressors that you have as well with your job or whatever it is that you do. I have to run my team, I have to take care of thumbnails, I have to record the videos, which, as you can imagine, you know, takes a couple of takes to do, and I really have been enjoying making longer videos and more in-depth stuff and just, you know, spending more time with the material, but it also takes more time and takes more effort to get everything right. And I think one of the, like, most, I guess, punishing parts of YouTube, as fun as it is that you're never done with work. And maybe you can relate to this, but the fact that you work so hard to get out a video like this and produce it and get everything right as well as you can, and then you publish it and you're excited, you have finished a video, and then the next video is coming, and the next one. And even though it's like so much fun creating these, it also can sometimes feel a little bit, you know, overwhelming, knowing that the grind never ends, and YouTube is always like, oh, this video was a 1 out of 10 or a 2 out of 10 out of 10, and you're like, oh god, is it gonna be okay? So that's kind of the type of stuff that I've been kind of very anxious about every single day. And if that's something that sounds familiar to you, this is where BetterHelp comes in, because it's a platform that will connect you with the right therapist. Honestly, it can be quite challenging to take the plunge and even start therapy, like researching where to go, booking an appointment. It can just add even more stress on top sometimes, but BetterHelp makes starting therapy a lot easier. All you need to do is take the quiz and get matched with a licensed therapist right there on your phone. And if you have a very busy and unpredictable schedule like mine, then it's no problem, because you can communicate with your therapist over phone, video, or text when it's most convenient for you. And if you want to find out if BetterHelp is the right choice for you, just click the link in the description or go to betterhelp.com/Ohara and get 10% off your first month of therapy. With that, back to the video, where a couple of characters could probably also use therapy. What I want to focus on today are the 4 core elements of worship for a kami in no particular order. You have offerings called shinsen, mainly of food and drink, but sometimes including money or other items, or even crazier sacrifices, at least back in the day. I don't think they sacrifice animals anymore nowadays, I hope. Then there's purification, washing your hands and mouth with water or sprinkling salt. There's the prayer, in which you offer gratitude and respect to the kami, as well as request for help, you know, your prayer, what you want the kami to do for you. And finally, there's a feast, in which worshippers eat the offerings provided in order to symbolically share a meal with the kami. These 4 core elements are present in practically every single arc of One Piece, but let's just start in chapter 1, where we basically see all 4 of them in one clean package right off the get-go after Luffy eats his fruit. What are Shanks and the gang doing when we first meet them, and basically throughout the entire time they're in Fuchsia Village? Feasting. These guys are partying hard enough that they drank all the booze in the party's bar. That poor girl, but hey, she got a BB out of it, I guess. And the purification element is a little bit trickier here, as you can imagine, but I can see it possibly reflected in one of 2 places. First, there's when the bandit Higuma smashes the bottle of liquor over Shanks' head. In that moment, he's covered with a sterilizing fluid, rum probably, and he chooses non-violence. Shanks, in this moment, remains morally pure even in the face of violence and hatred against him, knowing that it's only worth resorting to force when those he cares for are actually in danger. But if we actually do want the water and salt aspect here, then the later scene in the ocean could play the purification role absolutely perfectly as well. Much more importantly, that scene is of course also where we first see an offering to Luffy being made. Keep in mind, at this point in the story, Shanks knows what devil fruit Luffy has just eaten. He stole the sun god Nika fruit from the world government specifically. He'd already been a holy knight and learned about Imu. Shanks knows that this fruit has huge importance, is maybe the most important thing in the world, and given the amount of time that he spent on Elbaf, he probably knows a lot about Nika overall. And knowing all of that, he placed a bet on the new generation. He made a huge sacrifice, the offering of his own arm, in order to save Luffy's life. And in addition to that offering, he also gave Luffy his prized possession, the straw hat that once belonged to his captain Roger. You see what I'm getting at with all of these things? Shanks made 2 huge offerings to Luffy, and with that made a request, or if you wanted to, prayer to Luffy, become a great pirate, and then, you know, the fine print says, one strong enough to take down Imu. Now that core belief became the essence of Luffy's entire will, his entire journey, giving him the motivation to train and become strong enough to follow Shanks out to sea one day and, you know, kind of step in his footsteps. Shanks' offering and prayer to Luffy, or request to Luffy, is what made Luffy's story possible to begin with. It's what allowed him to ultimately unlock the power of a god. Also, don't forget how we made a whole video talking about the straw hat and how straw, and woven straw specifically, usually marks the location where a god is being kept in Shinto as well, along the shrines, for example. So Straw Hat. And as you know, Luffy's only grown more and more powerful throughout his journey, partially because, of course, yes, training, but also because in Shinto, gods are seen as more significant and more powerful the more worshippers they have. If you've ever watched the slightly niche anime Noragami, which is a real, guilty pleasure of mine, you'll probably be familiar with that concept. And in this way, the One Piece power system, when it comes to god tier characters, might very much function more like Noragami or To Be Hero X, where the public's belief in a character is actually directly reflected in their power levels. And when we keep that in mind, we kind of start to see all those elements of Shinto worship repeated again and again and again throughout the entirety of One Piece, especially post-time skip, once figures like Joy Boy and Nika were being much more clearly hinted at and straight up revealed by Oda in the story. The one time that Luffy actually tried to feed himself, he almost died. He is always given food, or should I say, offered food. In Dressrosa, Rebecca gives Luffy meat. In Whole Cake, Sanji gives Luffy the bento, also being like covered in rain while he repents his own sins that he's done by, leaving the crew. In Wano, Tama gives Luffy her rice balls even though she's starving, and then Karibu gives Luffy more meat during the raid on Onigashima. On Egghead, Kizaru gave Luffy a bunch of food from the vending machine, and food has never really worked on Luffy like how it should on a normal person. Like eating a bunch of food just instantaneously heals Luffy up fully and gets him back in top fighting shape, right? The man can drink some milk and grow back his teeth. Dentists hate that trick. Yeah. A lot of this is usually played for as a gag by Oda. Oh, just crazy anime stuff. Like the classic shonen trope of the main character eating lots and lots of food, but Luffy really takes this 10 steps further than even someone like Goku. He isn't just hungry after a big fight. At this point, the pattern has repeated so many times in so many different and important arcs that I just really don't think that Oda is just playing this for laughs at all anymore. This could be an actual hint towards the true power and true nature of Luffy's sun god. All these meals and foods are actually offerings to the sun god because they're usually, in fact, accompanied by a request/prayer. At the climax of Dressrosa, Rebecca and basically all of its citizens within the birdcage prayed for Luffy to free them from Doflamingo and his destruction. And riding on the wishes of characters like Rebecca and like Law, who weren't strong enough to defeat Dofi themselves, he finally revealed Gear 4, his most godly form at that point, and it's even the first form that showed Luffy with the Hagoromo Cloud Sash. We also saw it all the way back during Alabasta with Vivi wanting Luffy to please defeat Crocodile. We saw it on Skypiea, both with Nolan wanting Luffy to prove the City of Gold was real, and for the citizens of Skypiea to save the island from Enel. Again, quite literally praying to God to do this for them, and then Luffy does it. Over and over and over again, we see the same patterns in all these arcs, with it only becoming more consistent as the story has gone on. But I also think that it's not a coincidence that Luffy finally revealed his true sun god form in Wano out of all places. As the country in One Piece that is mostly based completely on Japan, let's not talk about Kano or Yano, also very important islands in One Piece that do exist, but Wano is where we see more Shinto influence and, all the kami stuff than ever before. While in Gear 4, Old Man Hyogoro literally recognizes Luffy as looking like a god. Who's Who invokes the name of Nika, who talks about how the slaves pray to the sun god to be liberated. The Gorosei and CP0 have the fear that Luffy will awaken his power, and sure enough, all of those fears manifest into reality. Not only did Kinemon and all the defeated Scabbers pray for Luffy's help to save their country, Tama, who shared her last food with Luffy, did as well. And meanwhile, which I never really clocked until making this video, an entire religious festival, the literal Fire Festival, was happening in the Flower Capital with all of Wano's citizens actively worshipping and praying to the gods for liberation. And it was only under these very unique conditions and circumstances that Luffy actually managed to ascend to godhood and awaken the Nika fruit properly. Of course, we also have some of the Shinto purification practice, not quite as heavily or obviously as the other elements, but there are plenty of arcs like Alabasta and Skypiea, or even Wano, that end up with a big bathhouse scene of all the characters cleansing themselves of the fight. Oda's even giving us a detailed schedule of each Straw Hat's bathing frequency on the Thousand Sunny, which, do with that information whatever you want. Not judging. But even arcs where there's maybe only a little bit of purification going on, Oda more than makes up for that with the feast that is just, I mean, it has become an expectation in nearly every single arc. It would honestly probably be faster to list the arcs that don't have a big feast, because after any battle is over, once Luffy was given an offering and the prayers have been answered and the bad evil has been defeated and people have been liberated, it's party time. Luffy, the sun god, shares now a meal with all the people who had their prayers answered and who now fully believe in him. By the way, if you're wondering, these 4 steps of worship are far from the only Shinto influence in One Piece that are connected to Luffy. Like, again, as I mentioned earlier, I made a whole theory a while back about the significance of the Straw Hat, where I talked about the concept of Shimenawa, these large straw ropes that are found at Shinto shrines and torii gates. They're usually signs of a purified holy space meant to signify where a kami, a god, is residing. So the woven straw hat literally shows the presence of deities, and Luffy has been wearing a hat of woven straw for the entire series. Oh, except only after he actually ate his godly devil fruit when Shanks offered it to him. Also in that video, by the way, I actually tied the straw hat to the line of the Weaver's Town in the song Bing Sake, and if we think about this in the terms of Shinto kami, then is Binx's sake, Binx's brew if you like, I don't like the translation, but sure, is that actually just meant to be an offering to the gods? Some theorists in the One Piece community, like my friend Arthur, have actually speculated that the treasure on Laugh Tale is just Binx's sake, and if that treasure is offered to one of the 4 gods, would it give them a power boost like no other? Other Shinto beliefs and practices deal with a love of nature and also guardian animals at shrines like owls or foxes or dogs, and we of course see Luffy with an almost supernatural ability to befriend animals, including ones who very much want to eat him. And by the way, he literally befriends a Koma Inu in Wano, right? Which is the classic guardian spirit animal of most shrines. And in addition to the ritual feasting as part of Shinto worship, the end of arc celebrations also have a lot in common with the concept of Matsuri. These are the classic Japanese Shinto festivals that bring joy and build community through song and dance, and we all know that that's Nika's whole deal. But also what I didn't quite put together until I read this book is that Matsuri, even though it's translated as festival, is quite literally the act of worshipping the god through festival. You might or might not remember this detail, but Mihawk here has mentioned during the war that Luffy has the single most dangerous power of all in the world, and given his friendship with Shanks, Mihawk may have known all along about the true nature of Luffy's fruit too. I've been suspecting that for a while, the reason why he was willing to train Zoro. If you don't remember what I mean here, he says specifically that Luffy's ability to gather allies is his greatest strength, but what if that's only part of it? It's not just that Luffy can get people over to his side, but that when those new allies believe in Luffy, the sun god Nika fruit just gets stronger and stronger and stronger the more people Luffy saves and pulls to his side. But this connection to Shinto doesn't just give us answers about Luffy's powers. I actually think, as I said in the beginning of this video, it also might reveal a lot about Imu, my boy that we got revealed as well. Imu has ascended to the empty throne as if to take the place of the rightful god there. In fact, Imu does see themselves as god, despite having the powers of the literal devil, it seems. It's kind of the NL situation all over again. And since in Japan, the emperor and the imperial family here is actually seen as descendant of the sun goddess Amaterasu, I personally wouldn't be too surprised if by the end of the series, Luffy is actually offered the position of King Emperor when a new world government is formed, though I would strongly suspect that he would really do a hard pass on that, like he did with the Grand Fleet thing, since he'd rather people just be free and left to their own devices, and also way too much work to, bother with that. He just wanna chill probably. But right now in the story, Imu, of course, in a lot of ways is acting like a devil in the sense that he's acting as the opposite of Luffy. Imu also receives offerings. He received offerings from literally the entire world as the heavenly tribute, but they're not like Luffy's, who are freely given by people who need his help. Instead, Imu enforces the heavenly tribute on all the countries who want to be part of the protection, umbrella of the world government, requiring them to pay heavy taxes of money and food and everything else to the celestial dragons, or face the consequences otherwise. And from these tributes, the world government then grows in power, just like Luffy grows in power when he's given food, but again, in a different way. And if Luffy might sometimes be a little bit light on the purification aspect of the Shinto worship, then Imu definitely has got that covered with his great cleansing. Again, most purification practices in Shinto involve lightly sprinkling salt or seawater. However, Imu seems to be taking this to the literal extreme with his plan to flood the entire world and submerge it underneath the ocean. Therefore, I guess you could say heavily sprinkling it in seawater. It's almost like this over-the-top, twisted inversion of Shinto practice, right? Like instead of an individual doing purification to rid themselves of misfortune so they can continue on their lives, right? Imu wants to perform his ritual on a global scale, completely wiping the slate clean and remaking the world in his own image. And of course, yes, the idea of the global flood is obviously pulling from other mythologies too, like the story of Noah's Ark in the Abrahamic religions. But as you might know at this point, because I bring it up a lot, the flood myth exists pretty much in every culture over the world. I think there's over 200 of them over the world in different places. And on top of that, the word cleansing specifically does make me want to connect this thematically to Shinto in a lot of ways as well. In fact, the name for one of the major Shinto purification rituals that's typically practiced twice a year in Japan is called Ohara. Wait, what was the island that Imu needed to literally erase from the map because they discovered the true history of the world called again? I'll give you a hint. It's the same name as this channel, Ohara. Ohara, it's like one letter off, guys. Now, the scholars on Ohara did, of course, uncover the truth that Imu once hidden, and so he and the Gorosei needed to erase the island in order to maintain their pure version of the world. And I do think that this gets at the core of why Imu needs to erase all that history in the first place. Alright, this is where things get interesting. I think that Imu is being set up as, again, the opposite to Luffy, and if that's the case, then his powers might function the opposite way as well. If Luffy's powers grow when people believe in him and symbolically pray to him, then Imu's are the reverse. Just knowing about Imu might make him weaker. This could actually be why Imu spends all of his time completely hidden and isolated from the world. Only the 13 people who have covenants directly with them, the elders, the holy knights, are actually permitted to know of their existence. Though I'll allow you to know about the Ohara Patreon, even though it's secret, where you can join to download artwork from my amazing art team like the thumbnails, see behind the scenes bonus content, and get early chapter reactions, and a lot more. That little plug out of the way, if anyone does find out about Imu or gets too close to finding the true history, they're absolutely done for. Sabo saw Imu and he blew up the entire island of Lulusia just trying to get rid of one guy. Wapol is on the run, certain that Imu wants to do the same thing to him. When Cobra saw him, his fate was immediately sealed. Only the highest ranking Marines are allowed to even see the Gorosei's yokai forms, yet alone even know about Imu's existence whatsoever. I think it's possible that Imu's power of the Abyss could come from people's fear of the unknown and incomprehensible. After all, Mu, the name that Imu called themselves, means nothingness or void in Japanese. So maybe the reason that the Gorosei are so scared of Imu leaving the castle and going to Elbaf himself, and the reason that Imu going down to the Blue Sea, is because more people learning about Imu on Elbaf is the thing that's actually directly sapping his own strength away. Or maybe he just has real bad asthma. Only time will tell. Now, at the same time, erasing the true history would also weaken Luffy's powers, because if Luffy's powers thrive on people worshipping the sun god, then erasing Nika's whole history and there's like Nika's name from the history books would just make it so much harder for Imu's #1 historical nemesis to ever fight back. Remember, only a few people in the world know about Nika. Kuma, the few prisoners who whisper his name in hopes of salvation, that, where who's who heard about it. Then a few others like the Roger pirate remnants and likely the red hair pirates. And then the island of Elbaf. Like, this could also cut to the core of why Elbaf and the Giants are so crucial to Imu's plan, because the Holy Knight said that whoever the Giants join will determine the course of the war, which was a little bit odd and still is odd to this day, since the Giants don't seem to be like that super crazy powerful, at least compared to the most high-tier characters in the story, just strength-wise. Yeah, obviously a standard giant is worth like a couple or like a few dozen normal human soldiers, but when it comes to combating really powerful pirates, they're not gonna be a ton of help. Dory, Broggy, especially Loki, they're up there for sure, but even a giant prince like Hashiruden just got one-shot by Dressrosa Gear 2 Luffy. But if you factor in the fact that Elbaf is basically the only full civilization that still fully practices the worship of the sun god Nika, then this could be huge. Their allegiance to the sun god could be one of the Nika fruit's greatest sources of strength, but that could all be about to change, because if Imu forcefully converts them all over to the world government side, they lose hope and then stop praising Nika, then Imu's ultimate enemy diminishes in strength. That would take away Luffy's biggest group of supporters right now and make it so he doesn't stand a chance against Imu. But now that the two gods are about to actually clash, this could absolutely backfire too. On the one hand, more people than ever before will see Imu and know of his existence. Meanwhile, the Giants will pray to Luffy for help like they never have before, fully recognizing his status as Sun God Nika, which could give him an additional boost of power. Now, of course, none of that will be a problem for Imu if he simply leaves no survivors on the island. No more worshippers means no more Nika, because I'm pretty sure that Imu still clears Luffy pretty easily at this point in the story. After all, a lot fewer people worldwide know about Imu, and not nearly enough still know about Nika, which is why the Straw Hats need to get out of here right now. As for how they might achieve that, who might die anyways, and how they're gonna get stronger and come back from this, I talk about all of those possibilities in this fairly long video right here if you're interested. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Thanks to all of our fantastic Patreons. Really, again, can't say how much your support means to the channel. It really is like a make or break thing, especially in harder times where like there's not as much going on with One Piece and there's breaks. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next video. Sunday.